Right, so, a new Steve Shives video. Okay, let's do this, people.
Hey, here are 5 stupid things I've noticed about online harassment.
Oh, for fuck.
Hello everyone, this is Schteve. Ugh! Damn it, I can't see a thing in this.
Its importance is frequently minimized.
Oh really, Schteve? Then by whom? Who is minimizing internet harassment? Oh, I think I already know the answer, but we'll just let you continue.
A survey by the Pew Research Center released last year found that 73% of internet users...
What the hell is that tagline right there? What the hell? Nice guy online, total jerk, IRL. Are you trying to poke fun at us, Schteve? What are you up to? That's not funny. That's just stealing our jokes.
...have witnessed someone being harassed online, and 40% have experienced it themselves.
Yes, I've read these same statistics, and they do say something that's quite interesting, but I think you might omit those interesting results, and instead opt for the less interesting results, or the results that you want to show us, and kind of maybe, possibly, I don't know, possibly distort them in some way. I don't know, Schteve. I'm not saying you're disingenuous, but you're not disingenuous, so, oh well, benefit of the doubt as usual. Hey Schteve, like old times.
And yet, so often, online harassment is reduced to an unavoidable but insignificant aspect of life on the internet. Something that doesn't warrant a serious response and is just best ignored.
Said no one ever. Everyone is concerned about internet harassment, but the sad fact of the matter is, there's not a lot we can do against anonymous trolls on the internet. The best thing we can do is literally to block and ignore. That's all you can do. All you can do is block these people that are harassing you. Bear in mind, they could be anywhere from 1,000 miles away, 3,000 miles away. Hell, they could even be the man next door who wouldn't dare do it to your face. You don't know. So the best course of action is to block and ignore. That's all we can do. Because if we try and do what you social justice warriors want us to do, it's to censor the internet. And that's not the way forward. We have the electronic power to block people, like what you do, Schteve. You block us simply for disagreeing with you. So you know how to use this function, yet you're treating harassment like it's an even worse problem than it actually is. See, the truth always lies somewhere in the middle, at least for the most part. And harassment is a big deal, but it's not the big deal that you guys make it out to be, because it is literally got the best remedy. It's the most simple remedy, and it's to block, delete, move on. And they will never harm you again, unless they take it into IRL and try to dox you, in which case you call the police, and not spread everything in public like they tell you, because that just makes everything worse. But do go on, Schteve. I'll probably have to repeat myself after this.
What people who hold this view don't realize...
I would like some pedantic evidence of these people who hold this view that harassment is somewhat not that big of a deal, and it should be ignored. I want to know who these people are. I want names. I want specific communities who believe in this thing, Schteve, because so far this is just a straw man that you concocted for this argument.
Or willfully deny is that the damage done by online harassment is not limited to temporarily wounded egos or hurt feelings.
I know. Oh, we know about that, because this is done from your own community, your own social justice warrior community. I've got several examples. I've got the example of a woman who was on a plane to South Africa, and she made an AIDS joke on Twitter. This was found by quite a few SJWs, most notably by Bring Back Bullying Sam Biddle, who then notified all his fans and his friends, and made an article about it. This person's an evil, racist person who's also homophobic because she made an AIDS joke. Even though it was an ironic joke, that was quite funny. It was poking fun at people who are homophobic and racist. But never mind. She got harassed for ages and never truly recovered. It took her a year, and she lost her job over that. Now let's not forget the recent case of Zami, who was an artist on Tumblr and a fan of Steven Universe, and she just happened to make one picture that angered the social justice community so much that they harassed her to almost to the point of death. She tried to commit suicide. Thankfully, she survived, but she has also not truly recovered. Just watch her videos, Steve. And I know what you're saying. You're going to say, oh, it's mostly done by men against women and these women can't ever recover. But the fact remains is this. These things do happen, but they're a rare occurrence. Most of the time, it really is hurt feelings and deflated egos. But then we do have that horrible side of it, which is not limited to people who aren't social justice warriors, Schteve.
It causes real harm.
Tell us something we don't know, Schteve.
The amount of emotional damage caused by online harassment varies depending on the person experiencing it and the severity of the harassment itself. For some who experience it, the effects are minimal and fleeting. For others, they can be seriously traumatizing. And by the way, the snide dismissal by those who perpetrate or defend online harassment of the emotional damage that it can cause to those who experience it is disgusting and inexcusable.
I'm sorry, but who the hell is defending harassers on the internet, Schteve? Are you so scared now that you're not going to name the usual suspects? Come on. Tell us, who are these people? You have no evidence so far. You are just asserting, as you usually do in these types of videos, about topics that you are rubbish at and that you have no skepticism over. And basically, you just say, oh yeah, these guys, who I'm not going to name, they enable harassment. They say it's not big of a problem. They even say it's not a problem. They defend people who harass. Who are defending anybody who's harassing it? Who's harassing people? I don't understand. Who's doing this? I mean, who? Who are they? Your argument is null and void if you do not give me some pedantic evidence, Schteve.
And that's just the emotional damage. It can cause harm in other ways. It can tarnish reputations, disrupt businesses, ruin relationships, drive people to suicide, or lead to in-person harassment and violence.
Oh, the irony in which you say these words, Schteve. The irony. Your community is the prime example of a community that, and individuals within that community who does that shit. You have done that to countless individuals over the years, and even recently, like I've said before, Zami, the woman who did the age joke, the two guys who made the dongle jokes were harassed. Started by a social justice warrior feminist, a self-proclaimed tech evangelist, Adria Richards. She started that. And then when 4chan decided, all these individuals on 4chan, I have to clarify there, decided that they would give her a piece of her own medicine, she went crying to the media and everybody else like, oh, help, I'm being harassed. And you know what the problem is? Do you want to know why some people might not be taking this too seriously? Because of people like Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn, who basically say everything that is criticism and every little comment that they get that might be negative is harassment. And that's why people don't take it so seriously. Because you can only cry wolf so many times.
And while people of all kinds can be targets of online harassment, it disproportionately affects young women.
Oh my god, you are so predictable, Steve. But you know what? I'm not going to release the hammer blow until you make the actual point.
While the Pew survey found that men are actually more likely overall to experience some form of online harassment, it also found that women ages 18 to 24 are much more likely to experience some of the most severe forms of harassment.
But that's not what it said, Steve. That's patently false. It never said that. This is what it actually said, and I'm going to read quite a lot of it, people, so bear with me. Key findings. Who is harassed? Age and gender are most closely associated with the experience of online harassment among online adults. Young adults, those 18 to 29, are more likely than any other demographic group to experience online harassment. Fully 65% of young internet users have been the target of at least one of the 6 elements of harassment that were queried in the survey. Among those 18 to 24, the proportion is 70%. Young women, those 18 to 24, experience certain severe types of harassment at disproportionately high levels. 26% of the young women have been stalked online, and 25% were the target of online sexual harassment. In addition, they do not escape the heightened rates of physical threats and sustained harassment common to their male peers and young people in general. So as you can see here, young women only get certain types more than men. Whereas men tend to get it more across the board, apart from stalking and sexual harassment. And as you can see here, it says overall, men are somewhat more likely than women to experience at least one of the elements of online harassment. 44% versus 37%. In terms of specific experiences, men are more likely than women to encounter name-calling, embarrassment, and physical threats. Beyond those demographic groups, those whose lives are especially entwined with the internet report experiencing higher rates of harassment online. This includes those who have more information available about them online, those who promote themselves online for their job, and those who work in the digital technology industry. Now, let me just say something about sexual harassment. Men don't tend to report it as much because culturally we have this thing that men can't be sexually harassed, women can't sexually harass men. So it's highly likely, from what I've researched outside of the internet as well as what I've seen on the internet, that it's more likely going to be 50-50 in that regard, from what I've seen. But as you can see on the graphs, men overwhelmingly get more harassment. So Schteve is doing some unbelievably uncomfortable mental gymnastics and cognitive dissonance in order to feed the narrative that he has been brainwashed with for the past couple of years now. It's all bullshit. He's lying. He is misrepresenting what the report found. He has somehow got it into his head that just because it says that some of the types of harassment that women receive are disproportionately affecting them, that does not mean that women are overwhelmingly the victims of harassment. Because, as we've seen clearly, it's men who are the overwhelming victims here. So, what exactly is he trying to prove here? Nothing. He's using evidence that says the exact opposite of his point to prove his point. It's terrible debating skills here.
Such as cyberstalking, sexual harassment, or sustained harassment.
But again, they're not the ones who suffer from it the most, Steve. That's not what the report says. It does not back your point. Please, give me better research than that. Give me a better evidence.
The survey found that 26% of women in this age group have been stalked online, compared to just 7% of men in the same age group and 8% of all internet users.
It also says that 32% of men are called offensive names. It is also said that 10% of men compared to 6% of women are physically threatened. So I could play that game too, but the numbers remain the same. 44% of men have been harassed. 37% of women have been harassed online. That doesn't prove your argument, Schteve. Just because certain types of harassment disproportionately affect women does not mean that women are disproportionately affected by harassment. That's just certain types of harassment. But overall, if you add all the numbers up, this is simple maths, or math if you're an American. 44% of men versus 37% of women. What kind of cognitive dissonance are you undergoing right now, Schteve? Jesus Christ, can you read? It plainly says the truth here, yet you're still trying to spin it. This is shameful, Schteve, and you bloody know it.
Additionally, Danielle Keats-Citron, the author of the book Hate Crimes in Cyberspace, found that 70% of women who play online multiplayer games choose to play as a male character to avoid abuse and harassment.
That shows that she has not watched or played any MMOs, nor has she actually, seen what men do when they play male video game characters and then play female video game characters. Because if you were to notice that when you play a female character, you get more shit. And when you actually pretend to be a woman, or you are a woman while having the female character, you get given more shit and you're treated much nicer. Whereas if you use a male video game character and you are a man yourself, or pretend to be a man if you're a woman, for a social experiment, it's proven fact that you will be treated much harsher. That is a load of bullshit. That does not reflect reality. The book is wrong, Schteve.
The particular victimization of women is something else that is minimized or denied by those who want us to treat online harassment like it's no big deal.
But nobody does want to treat it like it's no big deal. Who are these people? Who are these people? The only people who are making it out to be this big thing that disproportionately affects women, that they suffer so gratefully, is you. You're the ones who make them out to be worse than it actually is, or even less than it actually is. You downplay what it does to men and exaggerate what it does to women. You are the ones that are doing it, not us. You've shown that here right now. You have admitted to our faces that men are overwhelmingly affected, but you still try and say it disproportionately affects women, even though the statistics do not prove your point.
And that is yet another reason why such people can go fuck themselves, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you can go fuck yourself for doing it to men. You are the one who is downplaying it and saying it's not much of a big deal for us, when it is a big deal. It is a big deal. I'm not surprised if some guys don't report it and they got a relatively few amount of men, yet still 44% of men versus 37% of women. Not as much of a problem as you make it out to be. And I am not trying to say that it isn't a big problem. I'm just saying that the facts do not agree with you, Schteve. But go on, blame gamergate, I wonder.
Those who incite it deny responsibility.
Well, this is going to be a goodie. Please tell me who is inciting harassment. And yeah, some people will deny things to your face. They will deny it. But maybe, just maybe, they might be telling the truth, Schteve.
Sometimes online harassment is the result of an individual or a group attacking a deliberately chosen target.
Oh, look at the tweet. I knew it was going to be Gamergate. I knew Gamergate was going to be involved. It's funny how he just insults them, yet is now an harasser. Even though it could be the first tweet and only tweet he had ever sent, this is now apparently harassment for calling someone a dumb bitch. I've called many people on YouTube and Twitter dumb bitches, dumb bastards, idiots, cunts, pricks, dicks, but I don't go and harass them for it. I don't consider that harassment. I consider that an insult. I mean, funny how he actually makes an actual point, an actual argument, then insults them, which is pretty much the path of the course of internet debating. But never mind, that's harassment. That's harassment, apparently.
Perhaps the most well-known such target is Anita Sarkeesian.
And what did I tell you, people? I knew this was going to be predictable. Anita Sarkeesian. Ah, yes. Anita Sarkeesian, the one person who claims that all negative tweets to her, be it criticism or bullying or harassment, whatever it is all harassment. All negative tweets about her is harassment. How can we trust someone like that who will actually even provoke harassment herself in order to get more Kickstarter money and more views on her videos? It's all been proven. Go out and look for it, people. It's all out there. But yeah, of course, Anita Sarkeesian, the one person who has cried wolf so many times, is the prime example of a person suffering from internet harassment. Well done, Schteve. Well done.
The feminist video game critic who has been the primary obsession of the misogynistic hornet's nest known as Gamergate.
More patently falsehoods from Steve Shives. She was not even a key player in Gamergate. She inserted herself into that argument. She was the one who used it for more publicity. We weren't the ones targeting her. We were after the gaming publications, who were all run by men. Apart from one at the time, which was run by Leigh Alexander. Only one. She was the editor. She's the only female one that I could think of right now. We were after the media. We were not after individuals. We were not trying to sexually harass her, and we are not being misogynistic, considering that, you know, not your shield and all that, and never mind. Let's continue, people.
Now, defenders of Gamergate insist that their group is concerned with journalistic ethics in the gaming industry and has nothing to do with abusing women online.
Well, can you point to any actual evidence that we have abused women and that's our goal? I think you'll find it's not. And yes, I saw that tweet. I mentioned the tweet before in the video. That is not evidence. That is one tweet of a person arguing a point and then insulting afterwards. That's not ad hominem harassment, whatever you want to call it. That is someone who literally said, this has nothing to do with your ideology, you dumb bitch. That is not harassment. That is actually an argument, as crude as it is. That is, if you've only got one tweet, that is not evidence. I can just dismiss that. Because what's that? What's that going to prove? Nothing. That's an exception. At most. And as we know, the exception does not mean it's the norm.
Such claims deserve to be taken about as seriously as those of gangsters who insist that they're legitimate businessmen.
Oh wow, Gamergate is now been not just compared to ISIS, terrorism, although that's two things are the same, but bear with me, but now the Mafia. We're now compared to the Mafia of all people, who actually did have legitimate businesses that were recovered for their shady businesses. I might have you know, Schteve, but never mind. They actually were legitimate businessmen of sorts. And let's just get this clear. Your claims can be taken with as much salt as what you've accused our claims of being taken with. So please, do go away. And besides, we have far more evidence than you that we have not been targeting women at all. I mean, just search through the hashtag, you'll find hardly anything.
And that's pretty much how seriously such claims are taken outside of the spheres of influence within which members of groups like Gamergate tend to operate.
So basically, deny all the evidence that's been put forward in over a year by Gamergaters because, hey, you can't trust them because they're misogynist. Allegedly, mind you. This is his opinion of us. In his opinion, we are misogynists. Even the women in Gamergate are misogynists. And therefore, our evidence that we do not target women, we target the media, and we want, ethics in games journalism, which is what we want, as well as, an end to censorship in video games. And the removal of all ideology, all political ideology. Yes, you can make a political game. You can make a political point of view in your game, but we do not want the ideology of social justice or the right wing or anything like that to be trying to force its way into games and make it only about that ideology. But no, you can't believe all that bullshit because it's guilty until proven innocent, but don't believe our evidence or believe what we say because we're misogynists. Do you not see what he's trying to play here, people?
Which is good. And yet, the problem of online harassment remains largely unaddressed. Most of the time, even among people who acknowledge the problem, victims are expected to fix it themselves.
But they can fix it. This is not the same as physical, actual bullying, Schteve. This is not like being in high school or in the workplace. This is not like that. This is completely different. This is entirely electronic, where the power to literally block someone, to never hear anything from them again, is at your fingertips. So yes, the victims can take agency in this and sort it out themselves. Block, delete, move on. That's what I said before. Stephen K. Amos, a comedian from Britain, a gay black comedian, I might add, literally said the same thing as me. I can't remember the exact words he said, and I can't find basically said that there's a big issue with cyberbullying, and he says, I've got one thing for you guys to do that will sort this whole thing out. Delete. And that's it. That's all I have to do. Delete.
Maybe you should just unplug for a while.
Said nobody ever.
How many times have we heard this well-intentioned but utterly misguided advice offered to people who have been affected by online harassment?
Never. Never heard anybody say that. Have you got any evidence for that, Schteve? Oh no, wait, that's a pedantic call for evidence, and I should just check my privilege. Or whatever, Schteve, whatever.
It may be practical from a certain point of view, but it still amounts to victim blaming.
How is that victim blaming? Even if it was someone to say you need to take a break from the internet, you needed to relax, spend time with family, play some video games offline. How is that victim blaming? They're not saying it's your fault, go off the internet. How is that victim blaming? That's like saying that to a person who might get mugged or who has been mugged and might suffer from it again, learn some martial arts or, carry a pocket knife or go home with a friend or take a taxi home rather than walk and try and stay in heavily lighted areas with loads of witnesses rather than, on your own in a dark place. How's that victim blaming, Schteve? That's not victim blaming. That is poorly worded advice, even though nobody's ever said it.
Oh, you've been bullied or harassed online? Maybe the solution is for you to stop using the internet.
But that's not victim blaming, Schteve. It's something that nobody has ever said. It's a straw man that is meant to somehow convey victim blaming, but it's not. They're not saying that you are at fault. They're not saying that. They're just saying, why don't you take a break? Try and relax. Again, that's what I'm getting from what you have made up, Schteve. Even though nobody has ever said that, I've heard nobody use that as advice. Ever. Usually it's block, delete, move on, or if it gets a bit too much, you call the police, or the FBI, or whoever. You call the authorities, or you call Twitter, or YouTube, or Facebook. Whoever. You ask the authorities to sort them out. It's that simple, Schteve.
Yes, I really think we need to defer to the bullies on this one. I mean, what the hell is that?
Only in this straw man and in your stupid mind do you think that's deferring to the bullies. Really? What? You're not going to stop them from getting on the internet or getting off the internet. You can't stop them from coming on as much as you can't tell them to get off. Just like the victim does not have to listen to this advice. You do realise that people have freedom of choice, Schteve.
Then there are those who dispense with tact and empathy altogether and just say shit like, you just need to grow a thicker skin.
Well, yeah, for people like Anita Sarkeesian, Zoe Quinn, Brianna Wu, yes, they do need to grow a thicker skin. This is the internet. It's words on the internet. Some people actively go out their way to troll people. And people take it seriously and say it's harassment, when it's not. It's people doing it for a joke, for a laugh. And that's not lacking empathy. That is telling, a lot of the time, the truth of the matter. And, funnily enough, isn't this whole victim-blaming narrative actually enabling this thing to happen? Because you're saying the simple act of learning to defend yourself, learning to block people on the internet, learning to do all these things that can prevent harassment. Prevention is apparently victim blaming. It's causing more of this shit to happen. You lot are the ones who are enabling this bullshit, not us. Not us with a logical brain and who know what to do about these things. It's you who want this shit to stop. This whole prevention thing. You just want to stop it at its cause, but you can't do that. You can't do it. But then again, I think you want all this to be prevalent, so you have something to complain about. And I don't know, maybe some justification for your censorship?
You need to stop letting things like this get to you so much.
You see, we live in a world where people like you and other social justice warriors exist who are overly sensitive and take everything as an insult. Everything. Everything is problematic to you people. And you wonder why normal people will say this to you. Because you do need to grow a thicker skin. Some of it can be banter that you are misconstruing as harassment. Do you not think that could be the case, Schteve? Now, I'm not saying all of it is. Obviously not. But misunderstandings do happen.
One more time to people who say such things.
Most of it people have never ever said, and what you quoted about the people saying you need to grow a thicker skin is out of context. They're talking about people who are obviously getting trolled or they're not understanding what banter is, and they're quite rightly being told to grow a thicker skin. That's what I was told to do when I found out what banter was, and not all name calling is necessarily bullying, because unlike you and quite a lot of social justice warriors, I actually was bullying. So it was incredibly hard to go from an environment where name calling was almost always to insult me and to wind me up and to make my life misery, to an environment where it wasn't always bullying, or if at all bullying. It was actually just a way that people speak to each other. It's just games, it's fun. It took me a while, but eventually I got used to it. I learned what the difference was. And that is what these straw men, or maybe real people, I don't know who said that, are referring to. But you won't understand that because you lot have never suffered.
On behalf of everyone who has ever been harmed emotionally or otherwise by online harassment.
Typical SJW, always speaking for these people, rather than, letting them speak up for themselves. Oh, Schteve, aren't you the classic white knight?
Fuck you.
Oh, that's such a beta male response to all this shit. What, you think fuck you is gonna stop these people? They know what they're doing is wrong and they're still gonna do it. But hey, it's okay for you to go and attack the likes of Gamergate and anti-feminists and people like me for our alleged harassment, yet you're going to do absolutely fuck all about your own people doing actual harassment. Like what happened to all those people I mentioned, that doesn't count because that's social justice warriors, that's for the greater good, that's for the fight, that's for the cause. These people, they are harassment enablers who were harassed by the social justice warriors. It's, you know, eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth for you, or is it just an inconvenient truth that you're just brushing under the rug? I think it's probably somewhere in between, really. You're just a hypocrite, Steve. This is what this video's shown you to be.
How victims react to harassment is not the problem.
I'm sorry, but a lot of it is part of the problem. That is why they teach in anti-bullying lessons on how to deal with bullies that your reaction is incredibly important to how the bullying can either continue or is formed. If you react in totally the wrong way, they will continue to bully you. Say, for example, there's a guy who's bullying you and you punch him back. Chances are you'll get into a fight, but if you do really well and batter him, he's not going to touch you again, is he? But if you cower and don't stick up for yourself, or if you don't, I don't know, shoot back with a retort that kills his taunting dead, you're going to continue getting bullied. Our reaction is important. It is important. We have to teach people how to react properly to these situations. And I'm not saying violence or going to the police or anything is the answer. But on the internet, it is very easily dealt with. You just block, delete and move on. Or you don't associate yourselves with bullies. I don't know. I mean, if you're in a place where there's a load of people harassing and you're starting getting harassed, maybe you need to get away from that place. I'm just wondering, Schteve.
Harassment is the problem.
The main problem. But it's not the only problem, Schteve. You making a video offering no solutions and basically saying that prevention is victim blaming is only going to make the situation worse. It's only going to make it worse. And the idea of censorship and the UN cyber violence thing, even though that can't be possible because it's cyberspace, it's not a physical plane, it's only going to harm the wrong people. It's going to punish everyone for the actions of a minority. And you blaming the wrong people is only going to ignore the actual people who are doing this harassment, Schteve. It is you who is perhaps actually the problem. People like you are the problem, but you rely on this thing. You rely on harassment being such a big problem for your agenda. You're like conservatives who rely on people on benefits for their agendas. So you probably would, in your best interests, not do much about it in order to complain about it. Or, hell, make the situation worse so that you can get more votes. And I'm not just saying conservatives do that. Hell, even left-wingers have been known to do that kind of thing as well. For different ways. I don't think they'd use benefits for that, but I'm just saying. That's what you guys are doing. It's all political with you guys. It's not from a personal sense of injustice.
It shouldn't be tolerated ever.
It's not tolerated, but for some reason, you think it is tolerated, but it isn't. But you are still enabling it by making videos like this and stopping us from actually dealing with it and teaching people and giving them the tools to do so. In fact, they already have the tools to block and delete cyberbullying. But for some reason, they don't do it, but I wonder why.
Nor should those who perpetrate it or enable it.
So like you and all the other big name social justice warriors, Schteve, who enable and perpetuate it. Am I right, Schteve? You are the one who's not offering any tangible solutions and throwing all the best ones that we have into the rubbish because it's victim blaming, even though it isn't. You know, it's not like Nate Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn hopping on the gamergate bandwagon and say, oh look, they're oppressing us, they're harassing us, even though they have no evidence whatsoever, is totally not, you know, making the problem worse. It's totally not making everything terrible. But I'm just a shitlord. I'm just a misogynist to you. So, oh well.
The hardest part is only picking 5. Catch you next time.
And that's exactly what the subscribers who have now unsubbed from you are going to say to you, Schteve.